creepy and cool TikToks that will blow your mind. Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's go!
Disclaimer: this video is for entertainment purposes only. Please do your own research, as these clips haven't been fact-checked.
What you are seeing could be the future of building. China, of course, have just unveiled the world's largest dome that is 50 meters tall and covers over 20,000 square meters. That's the freaking height of a 15-story building and nearly 3 football fields. And the way it works is genius. The bubble essentially acts as a shield around construction sites, protecting the surroundings from noise by using negative pressure, but also against dust and debris by using air filtration systems. And it's not just the nearby communities and environment that benefits, it's also the builders. The dome is temperature controlled, has advanced ventilation systems to ensure the air is good quality, has sprinkler facilities to control the dust that they would otherwise be breathing in, and the material of the dome blocks out over 90% of the sun's UV rays. So no more sun damage and overheating. In fact, one reporter said it was cooler inside the dome than it was outside. And just to top it off, the dome also has quick assembly and dismantling, allowing for easy transport to other building sites.
Have you guys seen the Doomsday map? They came out with a map that looks like this.
Oh, wow.
This is America. They do like the whole world, but this shot is of America. But this lady, her name is Peggy Bolton. She did some really fun research regarding the Doomsday map. She compared what this map looked like. She compared that to the land that Bill Gates has been buying. All the farmland. He is the majority farmland owner in the United States right now. She took the map of the farmland that he owns and overlaid it onto this Doomsday map. Every single dry land piece was occupied by his farmland, including California. So California is basically completely underwater, but there's these little pockets of islands. You see those? That little one right there, that's one of his farmlands. Like that compared to like Zuckerberg. Oh, because on this Doomsday map, Hawaii is completely fine. And she talked about how Jeff Bezos is also buying up farmland around the US. That all correlates with like these high points in America. It's super creepy.
So we need to get a boat.
According to this map, we're good. We're almost at beachfront property, baby.
If that actually happens to the planet, ownership deeds will mean nothing.
In 2004, there was this guy named Mitch who was going to a university in Louisiana. There's this girl in his class named Kayla, and he just loves this girl. He wants to date her more than anything, and he's tried several times to woo her, but she's not that interested. She's kind of playing hard to get. And eventually she does kind of acquiesce and say, okay, you know, like, let's go on a date. And they hit it off, and they end up graduating. And after graduation, they get married. And by 2006, Mitch and Kayla have bought their dream home, and Mitch is at this dream home. He's sitting on the couch watching football, but at some point he notices something odd about this lamp. For some reason, the lamp itself was blurry. And he's like, okay, I don't know what this is about, but he does the typical kind of dude reaction, like, whatever. And then at some point, the lamp is now turned upside down. So now Mitch is looking at this lamp thinking, okay, huge problems here. There's something wrong. So that night, they put the kids to bed, and Kayla and Mitch, they go to bed too. But then after Kayla had fallen asleep, Mitch is wide awake, and there's something telling him to go down and look at that lamp. And so Mitch sneaks downstairs, and the light is not even on at this point, but even in the darkness, he can tell it's still blurry, it's still upside down. Now, in addition to being upside down and blurry, the lamp begins to grow inside the room. And so as it's growing, it's taking up more and more of this field of vision until this lamp is so big, he now is basically consumed by the lamp. And it's at this point that he begins to feel this blinding pain in his head, and he doesn't know where it's coming from. And then he hears a ringing in his ears, and then all he hears is just people screaming everywhere. And it's total darkness, the lamp is gone, and then he opens his eyes and he looks around, and he's surrounded by a sea of people that are all looking at him, and he's on the ground. It's broad daylight, he's not at his house anymore. A police officer comes charging through the circle, and he grabs Mitch, and without saying anything, he lifts him up, a grown man, and just runs with him to his police car. And the whole time, Mitch is like, where's my wife and kids? What's going on? And the police officer was like, sir, you just hit your head, I'm bringing you to the hospital. And so ultimately, he discovers what's actually happened. Mitch was a senior in college, and he got tackled by a football player, and he hit his head on the ground, and he was unconscious for a fraction of a second. And in those seconds, his brain constructed an entire life with a wife, with kids, with the white picket fence, the house. None of it existed. He never had a wife. He never had his kids. They are not real. And so he had to grieve the loss of people who never existed, and it wrecked his life.
This story makes me wonder, did he tap into some alternate version of his own life from another universe? Oh, by the way, I was taking a picture from my Instagram, and if you want to follow, the link is in the description below.
Okay, I've just got off the phone with Ethan Guo, the 19-year-old pilot that's been detained in Antarctica, and it's not looking good. Firstly, for anyone that doesn't know, Ethan is trying to raise $1 million for cancer research by becoming the first person ever to fly to all 7 continents solo. He's been traveling for over 360 days and only has one continent left, the one that he's currently detained on, Antarctica. And if you're thinking, detained by who? No one owns it. Well, that's where things get tricky, because on the 28th of June, he took off from Chile heading to Argentina when he says the weather conditions got so bad he had to declare an emergency and divert to land at Tennant Marsh, which is a public airfield in Antarctica. And when he did, everything seemed okay. He was met by a fire response team, and after a bit of a conversation and an hour later, they said he was clear to take off again, but he should file a new flight plan with the control tower. However, before he could, another group of people, this time in black clothing, approached him and said he was under arrest. He would only later find out that this was the Chilean Navy. After arresting Ethan, they searched his plane, moved it into a hangar, and then later that night they took his phone, they strip searched him, and then placed him in a room under guard supervision and did not allow him to contact the consulate or use Wi-Fi. Now here is where things get crazy, because Chile has been trying to claim this part of Antarctica since 1940, about a year after World War II broke out. But under the Antarctic Treaty, which they also signed in 1961, no country can claim sovereignty over Antarctica. So that begs the question, what legal basis do they have to apply Chilean law to a non-citizen outside of Chile? And that's not to mention that Ethan declared an emergency to land, which in the aviation world typically grants you immunity from laws and repercussions pending an investigation. From their perspective, they are saying that Ethan lied about the emergency, saying that his social media post about his goal trying to land on all 7 continents suggests evidence for intent rather than a real emergency. And now things have got real bad. He said that they've now placed a 90-day travel ban on him from leaving Chile while they investigate. Problem is though, he's not in Chile, and he can't even get there because he says that they won't allow him to fly the plane, and there's no boats or planes to get back there for months. He says he can't even leave the Navy barracks without someone having to go with him. So he's now stuck in Antarctica in peak winter, hoping that his legal team can somehow get him out. But at least he's got his phone back now, so I'll keep speaking with him and keep you guys updated as we know more.
So they basically illegally arrested him, and he looks so young.
China wanted to control population growth and stop poverty, so it told people that every couple can only have one baby. Now that was started in 1980, and it worked, but it worked a little too well. By the time China ended the policy in 2015, they had a serious problem: an aging population, a shrinking workforce, and not enough young people to support the elderly. So then they switched to a 2-child policy, basically saying, okay, you can have 2 kids instead of 1. And that didn't help, so they scrapped all limits in 2021, saying have as many kids as you want. But here's the thing. After decades of telling people to have fewer kids, you can't just flip a switch and expect a baby boom. The cost of living is high, education is expensive, and a lot of people just don't want big families anymore. Now China is basically begging people to have babies, offering cash bonuses, tax breaks, and housing perks, even hosting matchmaking events. But birth rates are still dropping, and it's starting to look like a real crisis for the country's future. I'll explain why this is a crisis in just a minute, but first let's head to Japan. I saw this school in Japan and it was totally abandoned. Leaves and vegetation were growing over the building. No one needs this school anymore. There are too few kids. See, across the country in Japan, schools are being turned into senior centers as the country sells more adult diapers than baby diapers. Now, this isn't the plot of a dystopian film, it's the very real future that many developed nations are actually heading toward. And it's driven by one undeniable fact: birth rates are plummeting. Now, you probably think, okay, maybe smaller populations are okay, or even a good thing.
First, we've got population. We could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
And reduce population.
But economists are in full-on panic mode about this, and governments are trying to fix this crisis, but hardly anything is working. It's not just Japan and China. The trend is most pronounced in developed nations. Countries like South Korea, Japan, Italy, Germany, and the United States even are experiencing record low fertility rates. According to the United Nations, nearly 2/3 of the world's population lives in countries with fertility rates below the replacement rate level of 2.1 children per woman. Now, that's the rate needed to keep a population stable without immigration. Meaning, if the average woman doesn't have 2.1 children and you're not allowing immigrants in, your population is going to decline. Demographers have been warning about this trend for years, but the decline is only accelerating faster than even most people predicted. In 1960, the global average fertility rate was 5. Today, it's around 2.4, and it's still falling. Okay, let's head back to Japan for a minute, because Japan has been in this boat for a while. Their birth rate has been stuck around 1.3, and now over 28% of the population is over the age of 65.
Ooh.
Entire towns are turning into ghost towns with abandoned homes and empty streets. They've tried work reforms to help people have more of a life outside the office, because right now people don't want to have babies because they think that they're just going to have to work their whole life. They've tried robots to fill workforce gaps. Yes, actual robots caring for the elderly. And immigration policies. Now, this is a big deal for Japan, which has been historically very strict about this. But still, it's an uphill battle. Once a country starts shrinking, it's really hard to hit reverse.
One of the major reasons why China has declining birth rate is because there are not as many women. You know, the one-child rule resulted in tons of girls being killed because families would prefer boys.
You know, music came from the demonic realm. Okay?
Music came
Yes,
from the demonic
The devil
realm.
was one of the chief culprits of that.
What?
Satan himself. And you mentioned, see, even Muslims use the word Satan. It comes from the word shaitan.
All right, we're going to come back to Aleister Crowley. What do you mean the devil created music? I fucking love
He
music.
brought music on the earth.
But it's a beautiful thing.
It doesn't mean it's all bad either, but I got to explain to you. So this is what I was trying to get to an hour ago, and we keep going off tangents. I hope the audience can keep up. And
I hope they can too.
I hope
but
they don't.
You're like a freight train, bro.
It's
Gotta let you roll.
There's so many moving pieces. This
I
is
know.
a very broad topic with a lot of very important things.
Yep.
To kind of gather it all back in. When God created Adam, before he even created him, the devil, Satan as he's known, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, the enemy of humanity. Okay? This species lived on earth long before humanity. Okay? Before the first human being ever existed, before ancient Sumeria, before any of this stuff, Billy, Carson, God had other creations on this earth. But now what's interesting to me is that from the from the Abrahamic perspectives, like, why was it always the earth being used as like this kind of like testing ground? There's so many other planets, right? Why, for some reason, he created that species. They were on here before us, long before us. The demonic realm. Now remember, English does not serve the description of what these beings are. It doesn't translate well into English. Because we think demon, they're only evil. That's it. Christianity tries to make up for describing them by saying, no, they're not all evil, they're fallen angels. But that's inaccurate. And I'll tell you why.
That's very accurate.
So I explained earlier, angels are creations of light that have no free will. Even those two angels, they couldn't do what they wanted to do. God made them go and test people if they want to learn black magic. They didn't say, hey, God, I'm going down to earth and I'm going to... No, he said, okay, you want to see how human beings are? Go down there, test them. They didn't get to do it on their own initiative. They made the choice that he allowed them to make. But there was no free will for them. They can only do what God commands
Yes,
them.
there is.
The demonic realm was created from a smokeless fire. Some of the scholars think maybe some type of electrical current. We don't really know. We know that they're made from a smokeless flame, and we know human beings, based on the Abrahamic faith, were created from all the different soils of the earth.
How do we know they're made from a
The
smokeless
sand,
flame? No,
the
no,
dark
not
earth.
that. Not that.
But look at the races.
The demonic realm.
Look at their skin colors.
Hold on, back
They
up.
literally look like the colors of
Back-
the earth.
Back
Go
up. Back up. You got. If you're not gonna wear the headphones, if I gotta stop you for something, you gotta take my cues there.
Go
all
ahead.
right. How do we know that thing about? I don't even remember what you said now. The demonic realm. What is it? It came from smoke and fires. How do we know that?
Smokeless flames.
Smokeless flames. How do we know that?
This is the description, at least in the Islamic tradition, of that species.
Yeah, only in Islamic
We know
tradition.
a lot about them from the Christian and Judaic tradition. A lot of that overlaps also. But a lot of this was also given to the Prophet Muhammad. Also. More intense descriptions of what these beings actually are. What I believe is going on right now is nothing more than a New Age movement of the New Age to convince humanity they were created by aliens and not God. Their only goal is to lead us astray. Period.
This guy is really off. Angels have free will. Oh, by the way, music is from God, but the devil corrupted it because the devil cannot create.
Fastest you've gone in an F-16?
It's Mach 2. For the layman's explanation, it's around 750 miles an hour. It changes based on pressure, altitude, temperatures, all that, but 2 times that, so 1,500 miles an hour.
Whoa.
And it doesn't really feel intense until you get low on the deck. You have that ground rush. The trees are going by pretty fast.
I would imagine.
But there's a lot of restrictions, so you can't break the sound barrier unless you're in a specific restricted airspace, which is few and far between in the U.S. If you're breaking the sound barrier, it's above 30,000 feet or higher. The sensation isn't there. You just see a little buffet on your dial. Otherwise, it just continues to click.
What was Top Gun Maverick scene about? Tom reaching a speed of Mach 10.2 or something. That's not possible, is it?
Cambodian dictator once banned schools and money just to kill 25% of its country population. It was 1975 in Cambodia. The war in Vietnam had spilled over its borders. Wounded soldiers, empty shelves, people praying for the fighting to end. And then it did, but not the way anyone hoped. The Communist Party marched in. Behind them was a man almost no one recognized, but who would become one of the deadliest leaders of the 20th century. He wanted to turn Cambodia into a perfect rural society. No rich, no poor, just farmers in the fields. In the first 24 hours, he emptied every city. 2 million people were forced into the countryside at gunpoint. Wearing glasses was suspicious. Speaking French could get you killed. They called it Year Zero. By the time it ended, 1 in 4 Cambodians were dead. In 1979, Vietnam invaded and ended the nightmare. Pol Pot fled into the jungle. He died old, free, and unpunished.
Pol Pot was definitely a CIA puppet.
2,000 meters beneath the surface. That's just 20% of the ocean's total depth. We can go way deeper. And what we find along the way? It's nothing short of unbelievable. At 2,000 meters, or 2 kilometers, you'd expect total darkness. No sunlight reaches here. And yet, you start seeing tiny lights glowing in the black. That's because we've just entered the bioluminescent zone, where almost 90% of sea life glows in the dark just to survive. One of the creatures here? A small, terrifying thing known as the abyssal dragonfish. But its teeth? 5 times sharper than a piranha's. Now let's drop down to 3,800 meters. This place is legendary because it holds the wreck of the Titanic. Yes, the real one, lying silent and broken nearly 4,000 meters deep. Keep going. We reach 5,000 meters and officially enter the abyss zone. If you thought we were deep before, this is just the average depth of the world's oceans. Life is barely hanging on. You'll only find strange sea cucumbers, giant glowing jellyfish the size of humans, and long-legged abyss crabs. Let's go even further, down to 6,000 meters, into the Hadal zone. This place is hell underwater. The water temperature? Never above 4 degrees Celsius. And the pressure? Over 1,100 times greater than on land. To help you picture that, it's like carrying 335 full-grown African elephants on your shoulders. Yeah, that heavy. But now let's flip the view. From the deepest point on Earth to the highest, Mount Everest, standing tall at 8,848 meters, the tallest thing we've got. And yet, Everest could fit inside some of the trenches in the ocean and still wouldn't reach the bottom. Because in 2012, director James Cameron took a solo dive down to 10,898 meters. He stayed there for 3 hours. He described it as a lunar desert. No life, no movement, just the sound of his sub creaking under pressure. And get this, back in 1960, 2 men went even deeper. They reached 10,960 meters. That's nearly 11 kilometers straight down. To put that in perspective, that's the same altitude commercial planes fly at, but instead of soaring through clouds, they were sinking into black silence. So next time you jump into the ocean, just remember, you're swimming above a world almost no one has seen.
And yet, people say there is no God. Oh, by the way, great video.
50 years ago, in a NASA base, Wernher von Braun takes me 3 floors down into the abyss of the building to a glass door. Look. The door opens. That's Wernher von Braun me. This is an incredible animation. Somebody sent it from Germany. We put the Antarctica coats on, and it leads me to this huge metal door. The door opens, and I get the shock of my life. With my own eyes, I see alien bodies lying in glass tubes.
No way. You for real?
This is exactly what I've seen 50 years ago in a NASA base. Nobody can take this away from me. Since I'm a child, this is the first time I reveal this, I get a jolt. But watch this, look what I'm holding. In my right hand, a camera. The photographs will shock the world. But in that hand, look, every 6 or 8 months I get a light jolt. I don't know what it is. It disappears in a few days.
Interesting.
They've been hiding this from us. The Great Wall of China. It's over 13,000 miles long. That's not a typo. 13,000 miles. To put it in perspective, America, coast to coast, is about 3,000 miles. You could stretch the US 4 times, add another 1,000 miles, and you're still not there. So ask yourself, how did ancient people over 2,000 years ago build something that long without modern machines? They started building it in 220 BC. That's before Jesus even walked the earth. And here's the wild part. It took over 1,000 years to complete. No kingdom, no emperor spends that kind of time and resources unless they're terrified of something. So what were they scared of? Now here's where things get weird. Look closely at the wall. The steep side with the lookout posts? It actually faces China, not the outside. That's right. The defensive side is aimed inward, which makes no sense. Unless the wall wasn't built to keep enemies out, but to keep something inside. Some believe it wasn't built by the Chinese at all, but by the Tartarian Empire. If that's true, what were they trying to contain in ancient China? And why does no one ever talk about this? Follow to learn more about the secrets they don't want you to know.
What about the Great Wall of Benin? Why no one talk about?
I'm back from 1865.
I'm back.
Some of you have possibly noticed that I like to time travel. In days gone by, I have time traveled with my DeLorean. I thought maybe I'd try a little time travel with this mechanism and see if I could make it here for the Abraham Accords. Or maybe this is according to Abraham. The Abraham Accords are underway, and now we have things happening all over the Middle East, which represent something that is happening all over the world. The Abraham Accords, according to Abraham. A while ago, the Houthis decided they were going to light the match on World War III. And then, slow-moving airplanes flew over the Houthis, luring them to start shooting. The Eagle knew exactly where all the Houthis were at. It wasn't too much longer before the Houthis, including their underground bunkers, were all a thing of the past. It wasn't too long after that that we have the deal maker going over to the Middle East, splashing a little more water on that wick, that bomb that should have started off all of America, all of the world in flames. But it never happened. Some deal maker went over to the Middle East and began telling them how wonderful they were. Next thing you know, we got these guys that have been hating each other for a long time, suddenly thinking, maybe you guys aren't so bad after all. And maybe you guys over there on the West aren't so bad after all. Next thing you know, they're buying arms, and then after that, they're starting up factories. After that, they're starting to like each other. Who would have thought that that was even remotely possible? But then, who thought it was even remotely possible to come back in time? Well, It's really nice to see things happening, nice to see the world in a ever so different state. I'm so glad that I was able to make it with my little time travel machine. And I'm so glad to be able to see that the world is about to give peace a chance. I'm not sure who coined that phrase, but I kind of like it. And who would have ever thought that? Those guys that have been saying we need to give war a chance. Well, they had their chance. War didn't seem to work, but who would have thought it? Maybe we'll give peace a chance. Here we are. God bless the world. May freedom ring everywhere.
All right. Welcome back, Unc.
China, they built an anti-mosquito air defense system that fries bugs mid-air with a laser. It locks onto mosquitoes almost instantly and shoots them down even in the dark. It's already raised over $200,000 in crowdfunding, and people are loving the idea. It's waterproof, pet safe, and runs on a power bank for all-night defense. If no one's bringing this to your market yet, you could be the one. I share clever business ideas. Follow for more.
What if mosquitoes sit on my eyes?
I found some zigzags and Muley Point. Y'all still think this is natural? By the way, this is the POV channel on YouTube, and I reached out to this guy to give him a gift for all the hard work he's doing. Look at this. Look at this huge. Look at that line.
Straight.
That ain't natural. That's not natural. Look at these cuts, bro. And people keep saying, "Oh, you're trying to say that right angles don't happen in nature." I'm not saying right angles don't happen in nature. I'm saying these right angles,
Ooh, that's a
these
cat.
cuts aren't natural. I know all about pyrite. People they keep dropping pyrite in the chat. I already know about pyrite. This is a Nephilim Titan quarry. Them Titans sliced this up.
Yep.
Laid it. Who knows? The joint don't look natural to me. This block right here is 1.1 million pounds. He did the measurements. He took the weight, did all that stuff.
That's crazy.
Doesn't look natural. Doesn't look natural. And I understand that it's not, you don't want to hear that it's not natural, because that means everything you've been told is fake. And they don't want you to know that the giants are real, because it points straight to the Bible. People don't want the Bible to be true. They don't want God to be real. They don't want Jesus to be Lord or any of that stuff. And if you realize that everything you were taught is fake, it's a lie, then you're like, okay, well, what can I trust? Who do I trust? The Matrix is lying to you, man. They forgot to tell you about the Nephilim giants in school, didn't they? They skipped that part of the curriculum, didn't they?
You're right.
These are
That's
some
a
cut
doggy.
blocks, and I think this is a quarry, a pre-flood Nephilim giant quarry. Even the POV channel bro on YouTube, even he was like, is this a quarry or is it natural? Even he had questions. I'm trying to tell you guys, man, these joints is cut. This is not natural. The point of this video is to get you to open your eyes and question mainstream and doubt what the mainstream is telling you, because they're not telling you all the information. Look at that. It's not natural.
Yep. It's not natural.
What if I told you the flooding in Texas is yet another land grab, allegedly? By the way, obviously, tragic loss of life, awful stuff. I just want to say that no matter what happened, tragedy, okay? But I guess it'd be kind of crazy if the city council had approved a $175 million power plant project in Caryville, Texas. This is right by where the flooding happened. Of course, you have the Doge cuts, which may have played a part in the lack of response, lack of preparedness. By the way, has anyone gone to jail from all the stuff they found in the Doge audits? Just a question. And wouldn't it be crazy if the map of rain enhancement projects in Texas seems pretty heavy loaded on the area which had flooding? I guess it'd be kind of crazy if the river rose 42 feet in just 1 to 3 hours, which is unimaginable. Of course, the Christian summer camp was a camp for the elites, children. And that red dot was on the radar all day, the day of the floods.
They don't care about the children. It's all about the money.
I found Turkish fellows from the 1400s who lived to 300 years when they were consuming raw meat. So you go into all these nomadic tribes of the past and they were consuming raw meat and eating raw meat and they were living to 300 years. And all of a sudden you got the cooking stove and the oven that came along to cook your foods and pasteurize it and zap it and pull all the nutrients out, and then people started getting sick. And this is why when we look back in the past, we see that people were consuming a lot of raw meat. They were also air drying their meat. I found Native Americans air drying their meat. I found all these different tribes air drying their raw meat. And it's interesting because Netflix will tell you the opposite.
Ooh.
They want you to eat plant-based.
No
and go the plant-based
way.
way. But all the strongest tribes were eating meat, that's for sure. And then they would tenderize it and get it prepared as well. Somebody said, what do you think about the cyanide in the apricot seeds? This is funny because every single thing, like a apricot seed or an apple seed or the cherry seed, contains cyanide. The thing is when you're consuming the full apricot and the seed, everything balances each other out. So the whole cyanide scare was pushed.
Let me know how you feel about this in the comment.
This is the first driverless truck fully delivering supplies across the USA. This is going to take away millions of jobs
This
from
is
truckers.
crazy.
Kodiak Robotics just deployed the first fully autonomous freight trucks operating without safety drivers in West Texas, hauling sand through 100-degree heat and dust storms on 21-mile dirt roads. These trucks use 12 cameras, 4 LiDAR sensors, and 6 radar units to navigate completely on their own, while major companies like IKEA and Tyson Foods are already using them for daily freight deliveries. The most terrifying part? Kodiak can retrofit any existing truck into a driverless machine in under 6 months, meaning millions of trucking jobs could vanish overnight. 3.5 million truck drivers in America earn their living behind the wheel, but these autonomous trucks never need brakes, never demand raises, and never call in sick. By late 2026, Kodiak plans to have these driverless trucks operating on every major highway, completely replacing human drivers for long-haul freight. While you're worried about AI taking office jobs, robots are already stealing blue-collar work that millions of families depend on to survive. The trucking industry employs more Americans than any other profession, and artificial intelligence just made them all replaceable.
What the tires become flat along the way?
So tonight we're going to talk about The Ninth Gate. So let's do a quick recap of what the film's about. The film follows Johnny Depp as a rare book dealer, hired to authenticate a cursed book called The Nine Gates of the Kingdom of Shadows. A book supposedly written by the big man downstairs himself, Satan. But let's jump straight into the real-world conspiracy. There's a belief among certain collector circles that The Ninth Gate is based on a real book. Supposedly this book was created during the medieval Europe's occult frenzy. Think the 1600s, but with worse dental hygiene and more goat sacrifices. The rumor is that the book, and I can't pronounce it so I'll put the name up, is a legit summoning tool. The final 9 illustrations, when interpreted correctly, opens a gate. But to where? To hell? To enlightenment? The fact that Roman Polanski directed this doesn't really help the evil feel. Besides him just being a piece of shit, he directed Rosemary's Baby. Some occult-leaning film theorists believe that watching the movie is part of a passive summoning ceremony, like a psychological primer. The idea is you don't open the gate opens you. Which is probably why every time I rewatch this thing, my coffee tastes like burnt sulfur. According to this theory, the film's cryptic ending, where Depp walks into the literal glowing gate after finding the final legit engraving, symbolizes illumination or transcendence. And here's a hot one. There are rumors Polanski didn't direct the ending. Some claim he turned in a different cut where the gate led to a cryptic library of forbidden knowledge, echoing real-world theories about secret Vatican archives, but that version allegedly burned. So next time you watch The Ninth Gate, maybe don't treat it like another moody 90s occult thriller. Treat it like it might be a cipher, a whisper in the dark, a clue. And remember, if the devil is in the details, maybe stop reading between.
He knows not to speak its name out loud. But the way I seen the movie is really dark.
Tell me around what year did flesh become normalized for humans to eat? Now watch this answer right here, look.
Normalized flesh eating for the masses began around the mid-1700s to early 1800s. Specifically around the year 1760, during the early stages of the Industrial Revolution. That's when factory-style slaughter, refrigeration tech, and controlled food systems began to spread. Before that, meat was rare, ritual-based, or famine food.
No way.
1760 is the turning point where it began to be normalized.
It gives me chills. We found out that the flood was recent, very recent, mid-1700s, and now it's saying that meat became normalized in 1760, right after the flood. So the flood happened, and then they started to normalize, because I'm looking into all the ancient cultures, right? Every single ancient culture, I'm looking into them, and none of them ate flesh. So when did it start? Because no one did it after the flood. It makes sense. We're on another level than average human beings right now. You know, the average bots that are out there, we're on another level. But this is why there's been a decline. This is the lowest level that humanity has ever been in right now, as far as spiritual.
So Abraham's son, who was a hunter, called Esau, who was a hunter, hunting what?
Qualities of a great seducer. Well, you don't have to have a lot of money, and you don't have to be good looking to seduce. That's a myth. Some of the greatest seducers, male and female, were not good looking at all. It's about psychology, and it's about how you carry yourself. I like to distinguish between cold seducers and warm seducers. What makes for a great seducer is very simple. I can summarize it very simply. You are outer directed. When you meet somebody for the first time, or you're on a date or whatever it is, you're not having that internal monologue going, does she like me or does he like me? Am I dressed well? Am I saying stupid things? What can I do to impress them? No. You turn it off, and you're outer directed, and you're listening to them, and you're entering their spirit, and you're hearing them say things that give you idea of what they're missing in life, of what they want, of what their needs are, of what makes them an individual. You're absorbing it, you're entering into their spirit, and then you can reflect it back to them. You can give them gifts, you can take them to places that show that you're attentive to them.
Basically, you have to be a smooth talker.
Breaking news. Scientists just proved something wild. The photon exited before it entered. Time went backwards. And that means the future can influence the now. Scientists just confirmed what mystics always knew. Time isn't linear. The future can influence the now. What does it all mean? It means that your future self, the version of you that already has it, is sending you information, downloads, transmissions now. That intuitive hit you got, that download that made no sense in the moment, it wasn't random. They're transmissions from the version of you who's already done it, already scaled, already launched, already living from overflow. It was a message from your future self, the one who's already launched, already scaled, already done it. Your body, nervous system is the receiver, and you're tuning into a frequency that already exists. You're no longer creating your reality. You're remembering your reality that already exists in the now. It's a remembering. When your nervous system, your frequency match, that's when that information, downloads, transmission, come rushing into the now. Get ready for the synchronicities, the miracles, divine timing, spontaneous healings, magic. This isn't science fiction. It's quantum physics. Time at the quantum level is not linear. It can flow forward. It can appear to flow backwards. Just like when you get a divine hit, a knowing, an idea from a version of you that already lived it. You're tuning in to a frequency that already exists, and your nervous system is the receiver. Because when your nervous system is embodied and recalibrated to the version of you that already has it, she sends you the roadmap. And this is exactly why I don't teach strategy first. I teach recalibration. And your downloads? They're not random.
All right, calm down.
DM me future to collapse the gap between someday and sold out now.
So deja vu is when someone remembers what happened in the future?
You know what is a much better story to me is the Transformers. The claim is they were found and came into the Arctic or wherever. No one saw it happen except the military because we're monitoring the Arctic. Then they get captured and we want to mine them for the technology that's in them. But we want to do it in a way nobody knows. So where do you do this? Oh, let's build a dam. So the Hoover Dam was the cover project for the analysis of the Transformers that we had captured. And then beginning in the 1930s, we catapulted. Quantum physics was invented, lasers were invented, miniaturization of electronics was invented, and it was all claimed to be traceable to this new technology that we reverse engineered, beginning with that research lab. I thought that was brilliant. The rest of it, no. When they're fighting each other,
yeah, it's
I'm Optimus Prime. No, I'm not doing that.
I love the part where Bro kept saying we.
Experts are now warning that AI automation of the workforce is happening way faster than they first expected. They said it would happen slowly, but they were wrong. Automation is not coming, it's already here, and if you think your job is safe, you might have to think again. In just 5 years, millions of jobs, both blue collar and white collar, have vanished, quietly. Let's start with Amazon. Once the biggest employer in the world, since 2021 they've laid off over 100,000 workers, replacing them with over 750,000 robots. New robotic warehouses that used to need 3,000 people now run on barely 1,000. A 60% cut in human jobs per warehouse. And if you think that's bad, it's not just Amazon. In China, one factory slashed its workforce by 90%.
Wow.
90%. They went from 650 people to just 60, and the production tripled. Apple's main supplier, Foxconn, wiped out 60,000 jobs in one factory alone, replacing them with machines. And trucking is next. With over 3.6 million drivers in the US alone, this is one of the most common jobs in America, and all of the Western world. But self-driving semi-trucks are so close. They're already running test routes from Texas to Arizona, and experts in the field say that 4 million driving jobs will be wiped out by 2030. And every estimate they've had is ahead of schedule. And the desk jobs and office jobs, they're definitely not safe. Law firms are already using AI to write contracts and do legal research. One firm gave 3,500 lawyers an AI tool that does junior level work instantly and without any problems. IBM froze hiring people completely and plans to replace 7,800 admin roles with AI. In healthcare, AI now scans X-rays and detects cancer faster than any doctor. A third of all radiology departments already use it, and AI doesn't call in sick. And if all that wasn't dystopian enough for you, supermarkets are building dark stores, fully automated centers where robots do all the shopping. You don't even walk inside. Save Mart, Kroger, Walmart, they're all investing in these systems right now. And in China, over 1.7 million industrial robots are already in use. This isn't science fiction, it's not 10 years away, this is now. The job market is being completely rewritten in real time. Most people won't see it coming until it's far too late. Can a robot really do your job? And what happens next?
No jobs, no customers, no business. What's the end game here?
You've all seen the laser DMT experiment, right? If not, search laser and DMT. They take DMT, they look at a laser line on the wall, and they begin to see code. Now, I'm not talking about a few people, I'm talking about hundreds of people reporting the same matrix-style code in the beam. No one tells them what they'll see, but they all describe it the same way. And here's the strange part. There's nothing special about the laser. It's just light on the wall, but somehow they're seeing through it. Here's my theory. They're not hallucinating. They're no longer collapsing the wave. DMT may actually disconnect you from the observer effect. In quantum physics, observation creates reality. But what if on DMT, your mind stops participating? Just like a camera with no film, still receiving light, but no longer deciding anything. The light keeps traveling. The probability field stays open. You're not in control anymore. You're just witnessing. That would mean you're seeing reality before it gets decided. They didn't just alter the laser, they broke their contract with reality. And that's the quantum field. It finally showed its face. That's my take on it anyway. Hey, give me a like or follow. My name is Dr. Chad Rolfson, and I'm going to explore some new concepts with you. Something you might not have thought about. So give a like and a follow and tell others. Have a great day.
I love how people try to make sense out of hallucinations.
After King Solomon established his kingdom by getting rid of his older brother Adonijah, Solomon was now ruling over Israel, but he was doing so well by making sacrifices and offerings. He caught the attention of someone, God. My name's Daniel, I tell Bible stories, and this is the third part in the series for King Solomon. Now, with the way King Solomon was ruling over Israel, it made God very pleased. So God wanted to present him with an opportunity. So one day King Solomon just falls asleep. And as he falls asleep, he enters into a dream. In that dream, he sees a presence. It was God. And God says to him, ask me of anything. Whatever request you make now, I will surely do it for you. And Solomon sat and thought to himself, and the only thing he truly wanted was a discerning heart. He wanted to be able to rule over the people in a way that solves problems. He wanted to be a good king, one that maintained peace. So he says to God, God, you have put me over such a great nation. The people are too many to be numbered. This means that they would have various requests. They would have so many problems. And these were the people that God truly loved, who he brought out of Egypt. They were God's own prized possession. And because Solomon loved God so much, these people meant so much to him as well. So he says, please just give me an understanding heart so that I will be able to judge your people correctly. I want to be able to discern between good and evil. And this speech truly pleased God. So God said to him, because you have asked for this, when you could have asked for victory over your enemies, all the riches in this world, even an extremely long life, I'm going to give you this wisdom you asked for, but I'm also going to give you long life, victory over your enemies, and I'm also going to give you riches. Now Solomon wakes up in shock. And from that day forward, there was no one on earth that had the wisdom of Solomon. There was no one that dealt with situations like Solomon did. The greatest kings on earth at that time all sent their people to learn from Solomon. They needed to hear of this wisdom that was solving impossible tasks. He would teach young scribes, musicians, and he would write proverbs that we read up until today. The wisdom that came from Solomon, it could only have been God sent, and it was. Solomon's wisdom helped him to understand something. Through marriage, many alliances could be made, and Solomon was the first king over Israel to marry an Egyptian queen and form an alliance between Egypt and Israel. No more conflict between them. So wisdom had led Solomon to understand that if you get married, the alliance between you and the princess of that kingdom gives you influence in that kingdom. And Solomon would acquire over 700 wives. As amazing as Solomon was, as wise and rich as he was, Solomon would meet an end that is spoken about up till today. Solomon took things a little too far. His achievements were great, but so was his mistakes.
To finish the story, people, let's go read our Bibles.
So here's another rabbit hole for you. Why were there so many orphans in the 1800s? Like millions of children with no fucking parents. They were shipped across the country on orphan trains like cargo. They were put on display at world fairs in incubator exhibits like science projects. But here's the part that nobody really talks about. Like, where did all the adults go? No massive war, there was no global famine, no record of some catastrophe that would explain this level of abandonment. And then you find out that Cabbage Patch Kids were supposedly grown from the earth in some weird folklore, and that kind of matches up eerily well with what was being shown at some of those world fairs. Now look at the old buildings, like the cathedrals, the mansions. the institutions, clearly built for a previous population. They're advanced, they're massive, but now they're empty. It's almost like the world was reset, and these kids inherited it with no memory of what came before. So were they orphans or were they left behind? Like, whatever happened back then, it's not in your history.
Insane asylums, because they didn't go with the new narrative.
Is that the guards actually take the girls and traffic them to the lifers. Because, you know, like they say, you bring a bitch around, then you could calm down a nigga. You know what I'm saying? So when they put me there, then that's when it just ended up being a really bad nightmare.
Okay. You were sexually assaulted?
Yeah, it was repeatedly. You know, it was like, it's like no other. It was,
oh man,
powerless. How do you be locked in a cell and it's bars, you know, and you can't get out?
Why do human beings do this to each other? Why?
If you want undeniable evidence of the fallen angels, you don't need to look far. Just study anything labeled, well, ancient alien theory, the temples, the giants, the sky gods who descended and gave man forbidden knowledge. Mainstream media calls it myth. Ancient astronaut theorists call it alien, but the truth is far older and far more dangerous. This is not science fiction. This is the echo of a war in heaven. Long before the rise of Babylon or Egypt, before the flood wiped the slate of the earth, there were watchers, angels assigned to guide humanity, guard creation and report back to the Most High, but they fell. Drawn by lust and pride, 200 of them descended to Mount Hermon. They made a pact. They would take human wives. They would create their own kingdom. From their unions came the Nephilim, giants of unspeakable power. They enslaved mankind, devoured creation, and ruled as gods. But they gave more than tyranny. They handed man the keys to corruption. They taught us enchantment and sorcery, war and weaponry, astronomy twisted into astrology, beautification for seduction, abortions and root-cutting, the secrets of heaven sold to man for vanity and blood. What modern scholars call, you know, technological leaps in ancient civilizations, what conspiracy theorists might call alien upgrades, was in truth the kingdom of the fallen. They built empires of stone, cities aligned with the stars and altars soaked in blood, the pyramids, the ziggurats, the megaliths too precise for Bronze Age hands. They ruled and God intervened. The flood was not just about wicked humanity, it was about the abominations that walked among us, the giants, the watchers, the dark knowledge. God chained the leaders of the rebellion in the abyss. The Nephilim bodies drowned, but their spirits remained, disembodied, wandering, what we now call demons. But here's the part they don't tell you. Their kingdom never truly ended. Christ warned us, as it was in the days of Noah, so it shall be at the coming of the Son of Man. And look around. We are reviving the sins of the watchers. They still whisper to us as we edit genes, as we worship the stars. We manipulate creation itself in the name of progress. The same spirits whisper again, sometimes from altars, but also from labs, screens and pulpits. The evidence is overwhelming if you're willing to see it. Ancient alien theory is not nonsense. It's misdirection. It points to real beings, real events, but gives them a new name so you'll never trace them back to the truth. The fallen angels are not gone. Their legacy is in your textbooks. Their ruins are under your feet. Their message echoes through your media. But so does the warning. You are not just living in history. You are walking in prophecy. Their kingdom is rising again. But so is the kingdom of God, and only one will remain.
This actually answers literally so many questions.
There's an insane new documentary on Disney Plus that you should watch this weekend. It's called The Boy Who Drew the Future, which currently has a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. It centers around Brian Everett, who was born in 1988 in Des Moines, Iowa. Brian started drawing in scrapbooks from a very young age, and it wasn't until September 11th, 2001, when his mom saw something on TV that looked eerily familiar to many of Brian's drawings. That day, she went to Brian's scrapbooks and saw at least a dozen images of planes flying into the World Trade Center, pictures he had drawn 3 years before. She showed the drawings to his guidance counselor at school, and that's when they started looking at his other drawings. Back in the 90s, Brian drew images of gas stations with no gas pumps, but lines of cars all plugged into electrical outlets. He drew crowds of people, all appear to be holding smartphones. He even drew a picture of the Chicago Cubs winning the World Series, and at the bottom of the picture it says 2016. Brian and his father tragically passed away in a car accident in 2003. But the creepiest part is Brian's final drawing. It depicts the United States in a cloud of smoke marked with the year 2026.
I like how he doesn't say what it's called. There's no such documentary on Rotten Tomatoes. I looked.
We can't show these pictures yet?
No. You could take human skin cells and merge them with octopus DNA, and then, octopus can actually change its color. So you can make a human skin cell be able to change its color and camouflage itself, kind of like the predator or something like that. Or you can take luciferase in this case and put it into any plant you want. You could make a plant glow in the dark. Let's say you have a shooting range. What's your number one problem? You're going to accumulate a lot of lead over time, right? And so what if you had plants that seeped it right out of the soil so it doesn't get into the water?
You had mentioned some early detection systems that these plants could be used
Yeah,
for.
sentinel plants. And so imagine you're a coal miner. What's your number one problem? You're worried about methane because it naturally leaches off the walls and you don't smell it. It's a silent killer. It explodes. So imagine a plant, a cave moss or something, and it doesn't glow unless there's methane, and when it does, it glows red. Called a sentinel plant, right? And you can use this for military applications, for industrial applications, for environmental applications. It's just magic.
There's definitely a human hybrid in a cage somewhere. What do you think?
Is a most interesting character in the Bible. There's barely anything mentioned about him, which is really curious, because not only is he the first out of only 2 humans to have gone through this, but Enoch is also the very first person to have never died. Interestingly, even though the book of Enoch is not officially considered scripture, the Bible still quotes it verbatim in Jude 1:14. Enoch prophesied, saying, "Behold, the Lord comes with 10,000s of his holy ones to execute judgment." And this is the book of Enoch, which says, "Behold, he comes with 10,000s of his holy ones to execute judgment upon them all." Now, in this book, it explains how 200 fallen angels descended onto specifically Mount Hermon. They all took this mysterious oath, binding themselves together in this rebellion against God. However, Enoch was now tasked with passing on this most terrifying message, a message from God himself, announcing their punishments. Okay, so this is where it gets super strange, because one day, after Jesus goes to this place called Caesarea Philippi, he says to Peter, "Upon this rock I will build my church." Yet what isn't commonly known is how Caesarea Philippi is almost the exact same location as Mount Hermon. And it doesn't even end here. What just blows my mind is how one day this archaeologist decided to explore Mount Hermon. But what he finds there is this ancient ruin, a pillar specifically from the 1st century. Just listen to what was written on it. According to the command of the great and holy God, those who take an oath proceed from here. The only problem is that the god in this text is identified as the false god, Baal. See, multiple pagan temples were once built here. This entire place was once claimed by a dark and mysterious force. Even the United Nations has a base here, which just makes me wonder if there, Jesus said, "Upon this rock I will build my church," then indeed his power has been established upon the ruins of Satan himself.
Focus on Jesus, brother. He is the most interesting, and the most important thing is what he did for us.
How significant is the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Right. People make these sort of silly claims that it's been changed and everything. If you looked at my organic chemistry textbook that I teach out of, 1,200 pages, and if somebody walked up and flipped through that for 15 minutes and say, "It's a bunch of nonsense. I mean, it's full of contradictions. It doesn't make sense," I would think that that person is an absolute idiot. So there were these claims that the Bible has been changed, has been altered, that portions have been inserted into the book of Isaiah, for example, that prophesy so directly about the resurrection of Jesus, the crucifixion of Jesus. And then we find the Dead Sea Scrolls, which were found in the 1940s. Every book of the Old Testament and the Dead Sea Scrolls date to 150 BC and before. So before Jesus was ever born on this earth, we have documents, and their Bible and every book of the Old Testament, the Tanakh, is there except for the book of Esther. It's just absolutely compelling. And when people make petty arguments about things, it's like the person that would walk up and criticize an organic chemistry textbook after looking at it for 15 minutes, because nobody who has really studied this will throw this at the doorstep of coincidence and nonsense, because it's so firm.
No book has been proven with archaeology, currency, history, culture, evidence than the Bible.
Even if you put your cat in a steamer pot, it still won't tell you these secrets. 1. Never feed your cat rice or noodles. Why? Because if your cat starts thriving on cheap food, who's going to buy all that overpriced kibble? 2. Never give your cat pumpkin. You really want a cat that doesn't shed, no more loose fur to brush, no more tear stains, and their teeth blindingly white. Disaster for the pet grooming industry. 3. Never feed egg yolks. They're loaded with lecithin and nutrients. If your cat's coat turns silky smooth from natural food, who's going to buy all those shiny fur supplements? 4. Whatever you do, don't give your cat cucumber. Because guess what? Poof, no more bad breath, no more heatiness. Say goodbye to the need for feline dental products. 5. For the sake of capitalism, do not follow this creator, or you'll end up raising a healthy, happy cat.
Bro doing reverse psychology.
They didn't come from distant galaxies, they fell from heaven. What the world now calls aliens are the same beings ancient texts called gods and the Bible calls fallen angels. Their names change, their symbols evolve, but their mission has never shifted: to deceive, to dominate, to be worshipped. They want you looking to the stars, chasing false lights, gods who never made you, while they bury the past right beneath your feet. ISIS was not just a terrorist group, it was a smokescreen, a convenient cover for the destruction of ancient relics, temples, and sites that held knowledge predating the Abrahamic traditions, predating empire. They filmed themselves smashing statues and burning libraries under the guise of religious zealotry. But the real goal? Erase the evidence. Shatter the last remaining links to the truth of humanity's origin, to the gods we once knew, and the ones who ruled over us. Is it any wonder that mankind's earliest civilizations, Mesopotamia, Assyria, Babylon, the Levant, are now perpetual war zones? Places so volatile that legitimate archaeological digs are impossible? Every bombed-out ruin, every toppled ziggurat is another layer of truth buried in dust. The war isn't just for oil or land. It's for memory. It's for history. The fallen know that if we remember who we were, we might remember who they are. Long ago they descended from the heavens. The Anunnaki in Sumer, the Watchers in Enoch, the sons of God in Genesis chapter 6. They brought forbidden knowledge. They altered human DNA. They taught war, enchantment, and astrology. And they demanded blood in return. When God flooded the earth, it was not just to punish mankind, it was to erase the corrupted kingdoms of these beings, but they never left, they simply changed tactics. Throughout history they ruled through thrones and temples. They gave kings their crowns. They built religions in their image, and their most enduring stronghold, the Catholic Church, a system cloaked in holiness, yet filled with the architecture and rites of Babylon. The pine cone, symbol of spiritual control, rests in the Vatican courtyard. The papal staff bears it. The mitre, worn by every pope, mimics the head of Dagon, the Philistine fish god. This is not the church Christ founded. It is a replacement. A spiritual empire designed to mimic Christ and lead millions away from the truth.
Yep. By the way, They didn't fall from heaven. They were cast out of heaven. There's a difference.
4 prayers that will change your life. 1. Heavenly Father, make me better. Change my attitude, my approach, my mind, and my reactions. 2. Heavenly Father, if I'm chasing the wrong things, redirect me.
Good.
3. Dear Lord, please bring me closer to what's meant for me. 4. Heavenly Father, please make my days useful, my nights restful, my home peaceful, and my efforts fruitful. If you need God to gild your daily life, put Amen.
Who noticed that God is good? Drop a comment.
Here. Sit here.
What is this?
And spin your ass with it. Not everyone at the table came to eat with you. Some came to study your plate. It's hard to unsee the truth. Once you start noticing patterns, let them stay stuck if they want. Some lessons hit harder when life teaches them directly. There's no doubt on that. Because you can't reason with someone who hasn't even met themselves yet. People who destroy others to feel powerful are already weak and broken. Let karma handle them, or be their karma. No shoulder to lean on, just pavement to stand on. Forever 10 toes down, I ain't never gonna fold. Especially if someone's drama, under victim mindset. I love to be the villain always. People will always talk about you. If you are nice and kind, they will call you weak. And when you are confident, they will call you arrogant. I mean, you just have to accept that you're not gonna be liked by everybody. Have the ability to be disliked, to free your mind and yourself from the prison of other people's opinions. If someone is mistreating you and tells you that they haven't done anything, you have to listen to them because they're telling you they're going to continue. It is a pattern and only you can break that pattern. Now, if you're gonna ask about me, do it personally. Don't ask other people because I have different personalities. For each person, it all depends on how exactly we relate. It's better you find your own version of me because I don't do revenge. I delete people every day. Funny thing is, you all gather even if you don't like each other, but you only gather because you want to ruin my name. Baby, this is Erica White. If you can't stress me out, just sit here. Sit here and spin your ass with it. Now, if you can't find bad story about me, then create one. I'll authenticate it and red ribbon it for you. I don't need to clear my name, especially when people who spread rumors about me. You can think and spread whatever you want, including your legs. As long as I don't have your mindset and your lifestyle, I am fine. My peace is intact and I'm good. Assalamu alaikum.
I thought he's going to explain how numerology is connected to middle finger.
The first video that I ever made on here that went viral was I know a vampire when I see one. And back in 2023, or whenever I made that video, it was not mainstream to talk about how there are possibly, allegedly, real-life vampires that live in Hollywood. And more people are coming out because celebrities are just making it so much more obvious. So right now I'm in my I told you so era because I told you there were vampires in Hollywood. There were vampires that you see in fashion, that you see in music, and they're not hiding it anymore. Playboi Carti is very flamboyant with his practices. I've spoken to you about other vampires that are living in Hollywood. I mean, everybody thought I was crazy, but they're coming out now and they're gonna be out in the open about it.
Check out these artifacts. This stepped pyramid with a UFO on top. 35-pound crystal skull. Front of the sarcophagus. The back of the sarcophagus. This guy was inside the sarcophagus. All of these recovered near Tula Hidalgo, Mexico. What do you think of all this?
Wow.
Stay tuned.
Creepy.
This battery has been running since 1840, and no one knows how. At Oxford University, a bell has been ringing continuously for over 180 years. It's powered by a mysterious device called the Clarendon Dry Pile. This dry battery uses stacked metal discs and somehow produces energy without ever being recharged.
Wow.
It's sealed behind 2 glass layers and it's still ringing. To this day, scientists don't fully understand how it works. Want more weird inventions and real mysteries? Follow Curiosity AI.
Impressive.
The CIA took decades to build a spy network deep inside.
The Chinese government has systematically identified, captured, and killed up to 20 informants working for the CIA.
Our covert assets are the most precious asset any CIA officer has.
We had 20 U.S.-related spies and operatives in China that are no longer to be heard from. They're either dead or in prison. China took care of business.
2006, 4 years before the China incident, and a private contractor named John Reedy is working deep inside one of the CIA's most secretive branches. Reedy is in charge of locating informants and setting up communications with them. His specialty is the Middle East, specifically Iran. But one day he notices something strange. I want you to take a look at this document that Reedy filed. Now, it's top secret, so a lot of this has been redacted, but there's enough in here for us to make sense of what he was trying to claim. As our efforts increased, we started to notice anomalies in our operations and conflicting intelligence reporting that indicated that several of our operations had been compromised. The indicators ranged from to sources abruptly and without reason ceasing all communications with us. Years before the China network collapsed, Reedy was seeing the exact same pattern. Informants abruptly ceasing communication with them, mysteriously disappearing. Their information tap was shutting off midstream. And now, I want to show you what went wrong.
China probably have 1 billion spy in US.
You ever wondered why the beaches are closed at night? Is it because there's no lifeguards? Or is it because of what's lurking in the ocean? A guy decided to test fate and go to the beach in Key Largo, Florida at night. He got to Key Largo, got to the beach, and found something that scared the living hell out of him. He recorded a siren sitting on a rock. You heard me, a siren sitting on a rock. As a matter of fact, take a look at this video. To the left of the pole, sitting right there. Look at this.
What is it?
Look at that.
Huh?
Dude, what is that?
I've gone ahead and froze it and enlarged it as best I could. But that is the figure of a siren sitting on a rock. Very similar to this image right here, looking directly at the ocean. I've gone ahead and pulled up what a siren is for you, for those of you that don't know. Described as a dangerous, alluring creature who lured sailors to their deaths with enchanting voices. So my question to you is, does that look like a siren to you? What do you think that is? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And as always, I'd love to hear from you.
Seriously though, why is it illegal to try to communicate with dolphins?
Have you heard the theory that President Lincoln was assassinated by the Rothschilds?
Oh, yeah.
The Rothschilds, they were basically sold the Confederate banknotes in Europe, so they're supporting the Confederates.
No way.
Because Abraham Lincoln wanted to get rid of the European banking system and make it the U.S. banking system.
The craziest thing about the Civil War that nobody ever talks about was Russia's role in the Civil War. And what happened was that the Russians had just kicked the Rothschilds out, the banking cabal out, and they had heard that, you know, basically they were trying to do the same thing in America. And Alexander, I think it was, actually sent Russian Navy to our borders. And you can actually see pictures of Russian troops with northern troops as well. And that's a big reason because Spain, France, and Britain were about to come in on the side of the South.
I mean, this is adding up to the Rothschild banking system. Don't learn that in elementary school.
Not a chance. That's wild. All history is a lie.
Yeah, I mean, it's written by the winners, right?
It's written by the winners, and it's there to basically form a group agreement that these people are the good guys and these people are the bad guys, and that's just how it's been done. And when everyone goes, dude, is everything a conspiracy? 100%.
Every war is about the banks, and the Rothschilds also killed, what's the name? Caesar?
If you have ADHD, this is actually a really good thing.
You've been convinced that you're lazy, you're unreliable, and you can't focus.
But this is not the case.
Your brain was not designed for the
9-to-5 sit down and focus model. You were designed for a higher dimension.
Your attention is dialed into a higher dimension.
You quite literally were designed to tap into the quantum field, which is not linear. Your brain operates at a very, very different speed. You feel things deeper than other people. This is a power, and you've been convinced that this is a disorder. You are designed to quantum leap very quickly, to attract in money very quickly, to attract in things that you want and change your vibration very quickly. They don't want you to know this. They wanted to keep you small. They wanted you to think that you are different than other people and that you have a disorder, and you force yourself to be someone that you're not, when instead I want you to realize that you have a power, that you have creativity within you, and I want you to own this. You are meant to collapse times. You are meant to jump between different realities. And the moment that you realize that you have a gift, that you have powers, that you are not different but you are gifted, this is where you tap into your true powerful self.
My brain is unstoppable. The thoughts never end.
This place called the
Russian.
Is going to blow your mind. 372 wounds, over 120 lashes. Each lash would leave 3 impressions. You see the lead barbells, the dumbbell-shaped bar, and you feel the weight of those. There is not a part of the body of Jesus that was not abused, traumatized,
oh my goodness,
beaten. Every aspect, front and back, even in the pelvic region. We don't have the lateral sides in the image. We only have the front and back. And so I estimate 700 wounds from the flagrum alone on the crucified man of the cross. Even Mel Gibson didn't really come close in the R-rated Passion of the Christ. That's how bad it is. No one was crucified the way Jesus was crucified. He's crucified in a particularly heinous, demonic way that makes him utterly unique as our Messiah who dies in our place.
We did not deserve such a sacrifice.
Did y'all know that it was a tribe that was at war with mermaids, like a supernatural war? And the people were literally terrified of these supernatural creatures? Let's talk about it. So the tribe is called the Rele tribe, or some might call them the Mercy people, that live in Ethiopia. Members of this tribe have talked about how basically everyone is terrified of these mermaids. Yes, like real life mermaids. These people don't think that these are mythical creatures. These are real life things that's really going on over there. And they discussed how basically they are afraid that they might make the mermaids angry and the mermaids might take their family. Because you got to think, when the people are going to the river to wash clothes or to wash themselves and to get drinking water and stuff like that, they have to go to these rivers, and they're terrified that the mermaids will get them and take their family underneath with them. And something that was very interesting that I watched on the interview, and I'm going to tag the person below that showed the interview on here, they discuss how they only take the navel, so the belly button, and the tongue. So I don't know what that symbolizes, but basically if you see a body out there and it's missing a tongue and a navel, they know that the mermaids got a hold of them.
Ooh.
But yeah, they talk about how they try to stay away from them and how they just really are like terrified of these creatures, and that they're not like Ariel and the mermaids that we know and love. And I just find it so crazy how there's always different variations to these creatures. But yeah, to them, these creatures is nothing mythical, sweet, and pretty. They are terrified of them. But let me know what y'all think in the comments. And I'm going to tag the person with the full video below of the people of this tribe discussing how terrified they are of these mermaids.
Trust me, Black Panther 2 wasn't made for no reason. Pay attention.
I know billionaires who spend days and days fasting to move demonic strongholds out of the way, to hear from God in the most profound way, to bring power and might and strength before they move into a particular industry. They realize that Jesus taught the gates of Hades will not prevail against the church. He taught there are gates, there are strongholds, there are dark forces of wickedness that stand and try to accost the church. And they're in your industry. It's that Revelation chapter 18, that Babylonian stronghold. It's that Jezebel spirit that wants rule, that does work and arrangement and agreements with traders and merchants and industries, Revelation chapter 18, of every kind. You are not going to pull up gates that have been in your industry for generations, strongholds of evil and wickedness that want to push blindness on people, cancer on people, distress on people. You're not going to pull up those gates by rolling in with your chewing gum, popping bubbles, and thinking you're amazing because you've got your nice fit and your nice vehicle and you created an LLC. Oh, well done. Oh, that's so great. That's not going to happen that way. You need true spiritual power and might. So, second big, amazing piece of Luke chapter 4. Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness. He was confronted by the devil, tempted by the devil. He's in this place. Here's the amazing thing. After 40 days, Scripture teaches, I think it's verse 14, he hungered. He was then led in the power of the Holy Spirit. Ooh. And his fame spread through all of the region. Did you catch it? The contrast? You can have the Holy Spirit, sure. The Father supplies the Holy Spirit. You can be led by the Spirit, that's great. But to walk in the power of the Holy Spirit, you will have to learn the discipline of forsaking fleshly desires and appetites, the discipline of obeying all of God's counsel in His Word.
Fasting fights pride. More fasting, you become more humble.
John D. Rockefeller in 1901 had $300 million in the stock market. $300 million in the stock market in 1901. John D. Rockefeller. People are getting paid pennies. You can buy a bicycle for a couple bucks. You can get a car and all kinds of things for literally next to nothing. So imagine having $300 million in 1901. You could buy out the educational system. You could buy out the medical system. You could buy out the energy system. You could buy out the government and push the Federal Reserve in there. You could do a whole lot of things when you have that much money in 1901. So what's happened is since 1901, they've been buying out the government and buying out these politicians and buying out all these people, and they just fold. And that's what we're seeing. So people need to be aware of this. Like even everything that goes on today in 2020, they're just all bought out. They're Muppets and puppets is what they are. They work for the system. That's what it is. That's why they don't work for the people. Anybody who worked for the people, they would either get voted out or they would take.
There's not a country, there's corporation. Most people don't get it.
They didn't build this temple. They carved it downward from the top of a mountain into a single solid rock. This is Kailasa Temple, and it's one of the most extreme architectural feats on Earth. It stands over 90 feet tall, but it wasn't assembled. Workers removed over 200,000 tons of stone without modern tools to reveal a full temple. Towers, halls, and statues, all connected, all one piece. Walk inside and you'll find carved elephants, columns, shrines, and a central tower, not placed, but sculpted. The walls tell stories of gods and demons, cut with precision and depth that has survived over 1,000 monsoons. Here's the twist. No one knows how it was done. There are no records, no plans, and no modern machine can carve a structure of this scale from a single stone. Is it religion? Is it geometry? Or just proof that faith can shape mountains?
Fun fact, no one knows what happened to the stone removed. There's no sign of it anywhere. There's not even signs of it being taken away.
Here's some buildings from the Civil War. Let me just show you a couple buildings from the Civil War. See kind of stuff like that? We're in 1897. This is 1897. But these are buildings from the time of also the Civil War as well. Now, obviously, they're not going to tell people that because they had to tell people that they were carrying around a bunch of wagons and trying to fight each other with, a bunch of cannons, which make no sense to shoot cannons at each other. But a lot of the old world in the South is all still there. And then what they called these buildings, they turned them into plantations. That's what it was. They were turned into plantations. And that's old world buildings just being turned into something else and then given a different story. What's happened is there's been multiple resets where they have gotten rid of a lot of these old world buildings so that people are believing a narrative that they've been sold by John D. Rockefeller. Because remember, John D. Rockefeller owns the General Education Board. So John D. Rockefeller is going to teach you the history. And then before John D. Rockefeller was J.P. Morgan Chase. So you got bankers and oil tycoons who are teaching you history.
It's so sad that we have been lied to our whole life. That's why we can't trust anything that the government tells us about anything.